Thank you for staying with us. The arrest of a soldier who broke the traffic law in Lagos State has continued to generate a lot of reaction among Nigerians. According to reports, Governor Sanwo-olu was on his way to the Ojo campus of the Lagos State University, LASU, for the inauguration of the Femi Gbajabiamila Conference Centre when the incident occurred. Now, while plying the Lagos-Badagry Expressway in a convoy, Governor Sanwo-olu encountered the motorcyclists and immediately ordered their arrest. A video that circulated the internet showed many of the riders and passengers abandoning their motorcycles and fleeing as governor security operatives gave chase. And joining us in the studio now is a lawyer, social development advocate, Olutubosun Oshifora. Good morning. Happy New Year. It's good to see you.
Happy New Year. Good to see you. Good to be here.
Right. But there has been a response to this matter. He has been arrested, and it is said that he will be dealt with accordingly as it is, and that this matter is an unruly behavior. It's not something that is, known to the military as it is. But let's get your sense of perhaps statements that came out of that video that the military personnel made, talking about the fact that it is not right for them to be apprehended in that manner, and he called, civilians some, unprintable names as it is. Let's get your reaction first.
No, it was quite an unfortunate incident.
Right.
And before we even go into it, I'll tell you something simple. I finished from Lagos State University, well, about 2 decades now, and I have seen firsthand, no lies, no capping, like they say. I've seen at least like 3-4 times where people have been knocked off and fatal accident because of all these bikes driving one way. When you're crossing with the mindset that this is where I'm going, nothing is coming from the other side. You know how they taught us to cross, you look left, look right. But this time around, you're going on a particular side of the road, so there's no point looking left or right. You're looking in the direction where you're going. And then comes this bike, and I've actually seen someone knocked dead on the spot in front of, by LASU gate, back in the day then. So that's one. So you can't play down all these people, whether motorbikes, whether vehicles, whatever kind of vehicle it is that takes one way. The accident or the fatality is always mass beyond what we can comprehend. So that's one part. Then secondly, there's a statewide ban on motorbikes.
Yes.
Generally. Now, so you have the one-way offense. You have also the fact that bikes are not supposed to ply that road. Now then, the governor is the chief security officer of the state. When it comes to economy, is the chief economist of the state. The governor is the C&C of the state, because everything rises and falls on the governor's table. Nobody will call your name. They won't call my name. They will call the governor's name. They won't call my father's name. If anything goes wrong, even domestic issues, people almost attribute it to the governor of the state, something that happened in your house. That's simple. Now, but the fact is, if you look at what happened there, it's bad enough the guy was on a bike, which is one offense. Secondly, you're driving against traffic. Then you were caught by the governor. The normal thing, even whoever you are, culturally, the first thing you do is even to beg. And he went on to say, I'm a soldier. Don't treat me like an ordinary person. Like I'm a soldier. And if you're a soldier, so what? So that means I have the right to do what I'm doing. That's the implication of the statement. And the governor kept talking, and he kept repeating the same thing. Now, that's one part. The second part that baffled everyone was when we started seeing reactions from people wearing camouflage on social media. And I'm like, how did we get here? When did we get to this level? One I've never seen. I remember an instance where there's a particular comedian who used a naval, I think he was in the Navy, and he was sanctioned for using the naval
uniform
for doing a skit, you know, and they came out vehemently. He was sanctioned, he was punished, and they came out with a warning. So coming from that, you now see people coming on social media with army uniform and not just saying anything. They're making statements that are very, very unfounded, and then talking to the governor anyhow. I'm like, what's going on? So I expected a reaction from the army, you know, and earlier.
Right.
But whichever way, I mean, they came out and said they've identified there's a particular one only belonged to them, the other ones are not for them. That was a good one from the army. But you see, that's not the thing. That's not the catch. The catch is the governor has shown capacity. And, you know, and he showed a good gesture to the army. That's why you saw the army, the chief of staff, I mean, the army chief coming to him, General Agbaja, and, you know, the cordial relationship. For me, that's a plus. And that's a good one on the part of the governor, because the way the thing was going, and it's enough to erode people's confidence in the leadership of the governor, because people started, and then opinions started forming. And then it take my mind back to the fact that this is the only country where traffic laws or traffic infractions are taken lightly. If you do that in any sane climate, it's enough to bring you down, no matter who you are. I remember that there's a Nigerian in Canada who had some elevated position. It was a traffic-related thing that got him out of his, you know, position. And so this is you now standing, telling the governor that I'm a soldier. So that means these laws don't apply to me. Yeah. A different law applies. But I like the way the army general came out and said, General Abacha, like, come, wherever you are deployed, wherever you are posted, you have to obey the laws of that environment. That's for me, it's a good one from them.
Well, there are those who argue we are used to seeing them go against traffic. You know, one way we see how they use the sirens, those who use the sirens, security personnel go against the traffic oftentimes. One way, or even just look at how they can clear the traffic. If there's even a hold-up situation, and you just see how they, you know, beat traffic often the time. So perhaps that's why some persons were just reacting in a certain manner.
That used to be the practice in the past, but that doesn't happen again. In fact, there was some video that was posted in reaction, I think about the next day, where somebody was alluding to the fact that that's the governor's convoy taking one way. And, you know, there was a rebuttal immediately that the governor doesn't even have this kind of, you know, cars in his thing. And it just shows you that why some people are on trying to make the state move forward. There's some people on the other side who don't really care, or who feel that their job is to bring down the government. But I think, like I said earlier, the governor has shown capacity, and then I learned they've deployed, you know, officers to that axis to make sure that they stem the tide of that one-way thing. And then also, you know, another thing that people fail to emphasize is the ban on the motorbikes. Yeah. And I'll tell you something, a personal experience. A few months ago, a younger brother friend of mine was had an accident and was admitted at the orthopedic hospital in Bobi. So when we got there at the visiting hours, we all sat on the bed, we were gisting. And the nurse came around and said, sir, this bed you're sitting on, before the Okada ban, that you won't find space to stand, that it was at the accident and emergency ward, that it was a per minute kind of thing that they bring casualties in. But immediately the government, you know, enforced that ban on motorcycles in the state, that they've had almost 0% compared to what they used to have. And I'm like, wow. That means there's some people who are blaming the government for banning motorbikes. You don't know how much blessing it has. You're in your house still, you know, saying anything to the governor, saying anything to the government, because fine, some movement have been impeded by that ban. But you don't know how much health and wealth you're enjoying as a result of this ban.
Right.
You know, that's one. There's also the security angle to the Okada ban, because way back, all these petty thieves and they ride on bikes and everything. But that has really gone down. Now, so when you now see an army officer, doing that, I mean, I think military officers are supposed to be held in high esteem. They are the ones who should, hold the law and really, really uphold the law. But him doing that, I think that was a low. And thank goodness for the reaction from the military, and that settles it.
Okay, perhaps what made this, so newsy was the fact that he had you could say the effrontery to, face the governor and insist that he was a lance corporal, that he was a military officer. But if you look at the trend of military officers in the past, there's been, the notion that, they are really above the law. We've heard of various episodes of fracas between them and police officers, traffic, wardens who are trying to, manage traffic, and then they are stopped, and it causes a fight between them. Perhaps, I don't know what you make of it, the army leadership made, because General Lagbaja had said this is not our nature. But then, in hindsight or in reality, that seems to be their nature. They look at themselves as
being above the law,
and then they look at us as bloody civilians and all of that. But how do you think we can, move on and get them to come under the superior force of the law?
All right. Basically, there's this. I mean, if you look at our ages, we all knew when the military. I mean, we grew up under the military. Not this Gen Z. I know none of us on this platform is a Gen Z. Right. So we saw the military, and we could recall the air of arrogance that, the military exuded back in the day. And I think somehow there's still some carryover of that arrogance up to now. And I think that was what gave vent to what the guy did. Because for me, I mean, common sense, the governor is not an ordinary person. And then if you look at who used to be governors back in the day, I think it's between lieutenant colonel and colonels who used to be. So, I mean, if you look at the governor in the place of a lieutenant colonel, a lance corporal wouldn't even face. I mean, that man has a level in your situation. I mean, you could look at it from that angle. Now, but no, he wouldn't even do that. He wouldn't even dare. But because the arrogance, like I said, made him face the governor. I kept repeating, I'm a soldier, a different law applies to me. Now, but one of the things that I will say, I mean, this is not patronizing the governor, but I'll say it plainly. He has shown capacity. And the way he extended, hand of fellowship to the military, and how General Lagbaja came around, and, the courtesy visit, the whole thing. You saw how cordial they were, and I think that has helped to douse the situation, and that has also helped to restore confidence in the people, because something as little as that could spiral into something that we never bargained for.
Yeah,
you can't play down the fact that people are on the edge.
Yes.
There's the economic situation. If you look at some of the ones who were ranting, even the ones who they said are not soldiers or they can identify with them, after they started casting aspersions on the governor, they just went into the economic situation and everything. So you can see that people are on the edge, people are angry and everything. So you shouldn't be in the situation where you will say something that will incite the people against the government or against the leadership of the state. Because if you look at it, this is a man, I saw some security meeting, I think around December, where somebody was trying to, speak and attack the governor. And he just went all out. Like, I'd never seen him like that. Like, come, you guys sleep in your house. I don't sleep till 5 a.m. I'm just another human being like you. Forget the position. But I'm there to make sure that your life is going on well. And you're here. So it's easy for us to blame the leadership for everything. I told you that even people have domestic issues, they still blame it. They find a way. I mean, your soup gets burnt, and you still blame the governor for, that kind of thing. That's how. But you see, you could look at that from the angle that people are angry. Economically, people are not finding their footings. Now, so it's very easy to just put everything on the leadership. Now, but I think the governor has done well. The state is doing everything within the capacity, same even at the federal level. I mean, you saw the whole travel thing, how they make life. Everybody's trying to make life easy for you The governor is doing his best. I know he's working, if I clock round, to make sure that the state goes well. Now, so I think we have to cut him some slack. We have to also relax and then try and do whatever we can in our capacity, whether as a civilian or whether as a military person. And I think it was also a good one from the leadership of the army.
Yeah.
Because if there was no reaction, you can rest assured that in another 2 weeks, you'll see more of such funny videos going around and everything.
But is it sufficient? Is the response sufficient, and will it go a long way?
For the time being, it is. But it should be a continuing exercise. It should be. Then I think the state also should deploy whatever force it has to show that there's a level of cordiality between the state government and the military.
Right.
Beyond the army, they should extend even to other forces, because they should show that there's synergy. They should show that the reason why we're here is we're working for you, we're working for the security of the citizens, and we're trying to make life better. I think it should be a continuing thing. It shouldn't just end there. That was a good one for the situation, for the moment, but it should be continuing.
But do you think that it would be good to see what perhaps attendant punishment is meted out on the army officer himself to serve as a deterrent, and also to repose confidence on the military, saying that they actually did what they said?
That would have been necessary,
right,
if there are no laws. I mean, if they don't have their own governing laws, because I know in that instance, you don't really treat a soldier the way you treat the civilian.
Right.
You know, I think that was where he got it wrong, that I'm not a civilian like that. I have a different law governing. I mean, when it comes to infractions like that, he will be subjected to their own, the court martial, and then they have their own laws, which are a bit slightly different from what we have. Because in that kind of situation, where he was caught, he should have been taken to maybe the mobile court or the normal magistrate court where he will be tried. But you cannot subject a soldier to that kind of treatment. So, but I know that the army is on top of their game. And then I don't think they will release such information to us. They've given us what is adequate by stating that, say, at this level, he's been arrested and
we are dealing with it.
And we're dealing with it adequately. So by the time they start telling us what's going on, the next day, you two, the bloody civilian will now start looking in the eye of the military that, see, nothing, you know, that kind of thing. And, you know, our people are very funny. So to avoid things like that, they will keep it to themselves. But you can rest assured, I mean, the general is a man of integrity, and he has given us his position. And the state hasn't found any problem with what they said. And they've shown that, I mean, we're working together. It's a cordial thing. So I think that's why I said Mr. Governor has shown capacity. He's shown leadership. And I think everybody should just support him and try and make sure that things go well.
This is a traffic offense and all of that. And even the regular civilians or the regular, traffic users will not be subjected to the regular court, but the traffic court, as you have, traffic offenses court, as you have said. So really, should the court martial, should an army marshal, take over, the proceedings in this case, or should he rather be subjected to the offenses?
Yes, because he belongs to the military, and they have their own laws and their operations. That's why they have taken it. And that's why the leadership of the military quickly came in and said, don't worry, we have seen this. We acknowledge the fact that he's done wrong. And this is not how we do our things. So let's handle it. And you can rest assured that you won't have such again. That it's good leadership shown by the military. I mean,
so it has even set a tone.
It set a
for
tone.
The nature of.
And then you see that action by Mr. Governor has done something. It's showing that, he could have driven past because he was in a hurry to get to some symposium, an event and all that. Now, but he needed to make a statement. And you can rest assured that people on that axis, if you see a black Jeep, you don't know whether it's the governor coming again. So that's enough deterrent. I mean, in the meantime, before they now deploy, necessary agents in that area to make sure that such infractions are stemmed. Now, but the fact that the governor stopped, arrested the guy, he even identified himself as soldier. So everybody has seen that whoever you are, this governor is not playing with traffic offense. I mean, that's a good statement in itself.
Right. Let's talk about traffic offenses and how Lagosians rather are responding to it in general, because it seems like once we are used to certain ways of doing things, it's quite difficult for us to adjust. That's why we saw a number of persons fleeing off their motorbikes in that video as it is. It's looking like we're still finding it difficult implementing some of these laws in certain areas.
Yes and no. Yes. Let me start.
Now, if not for that incident, we wouldn't have had the deployment that you mentioned that we are seeing in that route now.
Well, true to an extent,
right.
But I think there's something inherent in us that deviates from, laws. Let me tell you this before we go into that. I traveled recently, and I went to the UK, and I was with some friends, old school friends, and one guy was like, "See, let me just show you. There are areas where the camera won't pick you. You can run past." And I'm like, Nigerians, what is
here?
In the UK. So he was like, at this junction, there's no camera, so you can't do anyhow. And I'm like, you carried your nonsense from Africa. Now, if you enter trouble now, you say it's village people that are following you. Why don't you just follow the laws the way these people have laid it down for themselves?
Used to it.
But there's something about us that shows. If I have a friend that we went to school together, I will tell you that my spirit doesn't cue, that I shunt. And guess what? I have followed him all through school. We were in law school together. Every time he cues, somehow, before he gets to him, the thing stops.
Patience.
But when he shunts, he gets it.
Yeah.
He can get it above everybody. So I think that's like the Nigerian, let me not call it the Nigerian spirit, but there's something deviant about us that, I beg, I don't follow those laws. So that we have. And somehow, because a lot of people, maybe there are not enough personnel. I mean, look at LASMA. I was involved in training of LASMA about a decade ago. I was one of the facilitators for their training for weeks. And when I listened to them talk, I mean, it's enough to look at them that, because they arrest you, nobody is that friendly with LASMA. But when I was in the same shoes with them, I sat with them, listened to their own end of the story, and I found out that these guys are against all odds, trying against all odds. And some even they told me as far as some get hit with charms by commercial drivers. I tell you for free.
Really?
Yes. So it's a tall order. There are never enough personnel to enforce and ensure this. In fact, I'm doing a course in UNILAG, and yesterday somebody was like, how come in Dubai you have CCTV cameras everywhere, you don't have policemen hiding everywhere, and people conform to laws? But in this place, it's a different ball game. The whole class went, everybody started suggesting, and I say, don't just bring that example. Let's follow what we have here. See, the way it works here is this. There's a whole lot of things wrong with us, and we need a whole lot of orientation and reorientation.
Right.
This is the only country where you are on the right track. Somebody is driving one way, and he makes this sign at you. You know what this sign means?
Yeah.
Like, it's vulgar. Like,
you should know.
No, it's not give way. It's telling you that you are the one in the wrong. You're telling him, you're flashing, that you're in the wrong side. And it goes like...
and insists that you should give him...
Yeah, it's a derogatory remark.
Yeah.
But that's what it's implying.
That you should go away.
Yeah.
That can only happen in Nigeria. Now, so you can imagine... Then another thing I've seen also is, because of technology, though I know the Lagos State is deploying a lot to make sure that traffic agents, make sure that things go well. But one of the things I've seen is that particularly most of them close by 6, 7, 8. Once they are off the road,
it's chaos.
You can only drive with prayers. That's the only thing that can guide you home. Now, so I think in that regard also, the state needs to do more by making sure that such agents can work overnight. Now, but that will mean providing a lot of things. Their safety also has to come. You saw what happened. I saw your station cover, the pedestrian bridge. It happened overnight. We just woke up and we saw that a car had hit a bridge and the thing is down. Yeah. Now, that's the country where we are. Now, so if you look at the law enforcers, they've gone to bed thinking everybody is saying everything. But
even at that, they can't do beyond them.
Exactly. So even if they deploy personnel, a lot of things still need to come in. And I know the state is working at that because every time they keep coming on, you see them with new gadgets, you see them with new things. That shows that there's some response to the situation as it develops.
How sufficient is the response and is the capacity? Because as Veronica said, and as you also know, that particular stretch of the expressway is it perennially porous, security and otherwise. And the residents know, the bike men, they know that this is perhaps one place that you will hardly see government presence. So let us just carry on as before. And in any case, what is the state of the road for us to even, perhaps what is propelling them to take one way? We know how the axis of the road is. So don't you think more attention should be on government, to increase their presence in all of these areas to ensure there is a ban and there are gains? You've spoken about the hospital, impact of this on the hospitals, how we are even having, safer people to live their lives safely and all of that. But is government, up to the task to ensure that this is obeyed to the letter?
I always say that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And then government continues. Sometimes, you think you put in place some things until, the test of a material is actually when things happen. Then you know that, okay, fine, there's need for some adjustment. Even constitutions are amended. Now, so the way it works is that the governor has seen what has happened in that axis. And in order to make sure that the town is safe, the state is safe, then there's need to deploy more hands in that axis. Then beyond just deploying hands, there's a military barrack there. And you've seen what can happen from a soldier. Definitely a LASMA official confronting a soldier. If a soldier can look in the face of a governor, so you can imagine the plight of a LASMA or a KAI official, it will be more than that. So definitely another part, apart from deploying personnel, another thing is also orientation and also trying to foster a synergy between, because sometimes you have to really go to the trenches or you have to go to the people in the area and try and educate them, because that's how it works.
How far have we come with that? Are we, reorientating Lagosians with regards to these matters? Because I don't know if we've done enough.
We have, well, it's still the room for improvement. It's large enough. Right. Now, but you see, I know there's a whole lot that goes into training and retraining officials, and also there are enough radio programs and, channels with which they reach out to people. But, the
people deviants... on motorbikes, they don't listen to radio.
They listen. Even at their parks.
They have the time.
Even at their parks. But you see, sometimes, if you look at, particularly way back when the bikes were really on, the motorbikes were really on, there's a particular tribe that, that gets into this thing. They come from their villages. They just give them a bike. I think they have this communal effort. Some of them don't even know. If I have had cause to go way back, I got on a bike. I said, okay, this way. And he just said 50 naira. And I'm like, even me, I know that this distance, 50 naira wouldn't cover it. I just said, no worry, make her come down. I just got off, and like that. So for those kind of people, you have to talk to them in the language that they understand. Then also they have certain leadership. You have to go through them. So the orientation agencies too have a lot to do. They have a lot on their hands. The government too has a lot to do by not just deploying personnel there. Is not enough to have LASMA. You also have to meet the people one-on-one or through their communities and educate them on the hazards and the dangers. You see, this thing is easy to say. Somebody who lost a child or a family member to a vehicle going on one way, they won't sit down with us and be smiling like this, because they know
had incidents like that.
Yes. So you can actually bring in people who had such experience, or people who have victims. Or you can actually bring victims. You can bring people maybe who have been sentenced also, that come and be a part of this orientation program. and tell people the hazards of doing this. Like that information I gave you, I never knew anything until I got to Gbobi. I had no business in Gbobi until I went there. And I was like, wow. So every time I look, I pray silently for the governor in my mind that that's a good one. There are people sitting at home. You probably would have gone on a bike and you land there. But because of the ban, you don't know, blessings can come in different ways. So that's some blessing, but you don't know how much blessing you got. Exactly. So that's it. So deploying hands one side, orientation is also key. The deviant in us, I don't know whether we'll go spiritual and try to tame it, but we have to put in everything because Nigerians naturally are deviant. Sincerely speaking, we just don't, laws just come to us funny. Like, oh, I beg. Once you hear I beg, people just want to do wrong. That's it. You go to a filling station, stay on the queue, no. You just want to. There's something in us that is always in a hurry. And sometimes, particularly, then you see these commercial vehicles. Those ones are in a class by themselves. They will, go ahead of you, and then the next thing they will just stop, just to pick passengers. So every day you see, and then there's a part also that the people need to do. I've seen people come and beg for them. Somebody has done something wrong. The next thing they'll say, leave him now, let him go. If you leave him, he will do another one. That's one part where we need to change in this country. Because if you feel, just let him go, don't allow him to do this. If you don't really punish people for infractions, that's why you have multiplicity of such infractions. Because if they look at it, that imagine if governor said, he's a soldier, okay, let him go. You made the wrong statement. Soldiers will feel it's their right to do anyhow. All these apologies being tendered by the military, now we wouldn't hear that. And then they will just go around, and then they will do more than you expect. Just give them an inch, and they will take a mile. That's what you have. So everybody needs to come together. Governor has shown capacity. Governor is doing well. His team also is working around the clock to make sure that this thing goes well. Then it's just for us to support and put our bias aside and just make sure that things work.
And the issue of bias is also something that we saw play out, because it wasn't just people wearing military uniforms that were antagonizing the governor for his actions. We even saw regular residents of the state, also seeming to support the military man in the question. So to you, is it a sense of perhaps how much we as civilians have been beaten or subjected, thinking that, this class of people are, superior to us? Do you get a sense of that we also perhaps, like you said, it's a national reorientation that we need to imbibe?
You see, sinners will always love themselves. You see someone, I'm on a platform, my secondary school platform. There were people siding with the military guy, and even before we saw all the videos, I couldn't even join the conversation because I was like, how are you reasoning like this? That don't you know the implication of driving one way and all that? But if you look at them, they are deviant by themselves. So it's like looking for your peer and siding with them. That's basically, you will always have that. I mean, there's a saying in Yoruba that even a child who stones his mother will still have one or two supporters in the community, despite the fact that that's a heinous, that's an aberration. They will still have, he will have his likes that will support him. So you have those kind of people. But you see, for those ones, the best way to do is you come with the full powers of the law. Once you do that, that is enough to, dissuade them from going ahead to commit such infraction. Then also the government needs to make statements like that. Because if you don't do that, you will just encourage such persons. Now, but coming to also people who supported him because of how the military have treated us, that is also a plausible argument. But at the same time, I think if you go around Lagos, 9.5 out of 10 didn't really like what that guy did on that Ojo Express Road. And everybody sided with the governor. Even people who I know who are not who didn't vote for the governor, who didn't like the governor.
Authority.
Everybody was, no, this
front.
is a step in the right direction. And everybody supported the move. And then it became more interesting when General Lagbaja came around. And, you know, for me, you know, the normal military we used to know won't do that, sincerely speaking. So that he should be commended on his part. Then also, I think the governor also created the platform for him to have such, cordiality between them. And I think that's enough statement, but there's just need for a follow-up on it. And then Lagos will be the place we always...
You think there's a need to also have some reorientation for them, instilling discipline, again, because beyond just driving against the traffic and all of it, there are other issues that Nigerians
Civil relations.
Yeah.
The military needs... I think there's a way to teach them, which is quite different from... There's this air of superiority with them, and they feel, you know, somehow they feel, well, the ones protecting you, you can't look in my face. You know, we've seen these things over time. Now, but there's a whole lot that needs to be done on civil relations.
Right.
Between military and civilians. We're not inferior.